we go. So let's begin. So Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everybody, students, faculty from across the university and across the world. And welcome Delaney Glass and Dina, and I don't know whoever else is around. We're very happy to have you, Delaney, with us today to share your research and your inspiration and your motivation. Our students range from freshmen to sophomores to seniors and probably some graduate students as well. And most of them are biology or biotechnology or from the sciences, basic sciences, and some may be from pharmacy, freshman students or nursing or even medical students, but freshmen. I want to introduce Delaney briefly. So Delaney Glass is an assistant professor at the University of Toronto. We are very excited to have her. She's from the Department of Anthropology, yet she works with biomarkers. Her fields of study are evolutionary anthropology and medical anthropology. She's interested in child and adolescent health and well-being, psychoneuroendocrinology, bioculture anthropology, Arab diaspora, displacement, conflict, social inequality, stress, and resilience. So very interdisciplinary and which is so important and so enriching and so refreshing. Because that's what, it's at the boundaries of disciplines where creativity and innovation happens. So we're very excited to have Delaney. Of course, I know Delaney from a long time ago when she was a PhD student. We're very proud of her. I was on her PhD advisory committee, and we're so proud of her because she became an assistant professor directly out of grad school, which is rare and speaks a testimony to her quality of work, her rigor, and her creativity. So, Delaney is going to give us a talk about from hormones to heart rate, adversity, stress, and adolescent biological and social well-being. Delaney and I have published a number of papers together, and there's a lot more coming in the pipeline. And we hope to see her in Jordan soon, doing more research together. So without further ado, Delaney will speak for around like 35 to 40 minutes, or let's say 40 to 45, and then people can ask questions or type in the chat. And I tell my audience, if you have a question in Arabic, that's fine. You can type it in Arabic. We can read it and translate it, or you want to say it in Arabic, I will translate it. Delaney's Arabic is okay. One day she will be very fluent in Arabic, but we won't test that now. And we are recording this so everybody knows, so others can share and learn from this lecture. So over to you, Delaney. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you so much. Marhaban bikum. Assalamu alaikum. I'm gonna give the talk in English, as Rana said, because my Arabic's not that good. But inshallah, in the future, it will be better. So, just to get started, I am curious. You can raise your hand if you recognize the photo on the background of the screen. Like if you have a guess of where this was taken. Does anyone know? It should be very familiar to you. Rana, do you have a
Young
guess?
people, you know what this is. This is although
This
the
is your
Hashemite
city.
University, yeah, the Hashemite University is in Zarqa, but this is in Amman. This is
Yeah.
actually from Jabal Web. You can see Jabal Al Amman in front of you.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Yes, indeed.
and I'm sure many
Okay,
did,
so
but it's the end of the day.
yeah, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, so this is from the web day. I took it last year and I just think it's nice. So, okay, so so I usually like to start my talk with just an acknowledgement of everything that's been going on in Palestine, especially you know, um acknowledging everyone that the world has lost in the genocide, including a colleague and a friend, and so of course a dedication is not that much, but it's something. And so I just want to keep that in the background of our minds, right? Because this has affected everybody over here in Jordan and Palestine. Many of our collaborators and friends have been affected. So this is just something that I like to start this talk with. Um, okay, so just some background on me. This is me um, on the left in Amman. I can't remember the cafe, but it's up on like the highway, and you can see Palestine from it. Anyway, um, so this is just a picture of me, and then two places where I work. So in the middle is also from Jordan in Wadi al Musa, and then in Wadi Musa, and then on the right is actually a picture from the street in Toronto, Canada, where I live. And my work focuses on the intersection of biology and culture, mostly in adolescence or in the period of roughly ages 10 to 25. And I mostly focus on how early life experiences are shaping the adolescent experience in terms of health and well-being. But I also do research on other parts of the life course, for instance, in infancy, early childhood, and also late adulthood. And so the first part of my talk is going to discuss some of the work I've been doing on hormones, specifically in Jordan. And then towards the end of the talk, I'm going to discuss, um, sorry, there's a lot of people joining, so I'm a little distracted. So at the second part of the talk, I'm going to discuss some upcoming projects that I'm working on. So when we talk about adolescence, I think in Arabic it's al-murahaka. So in adolescence, there's a lot of changes happening in this months to years long shift from childhood to adulthood. So there's the sociocultural transition occurring in this whole period. And then there's also biological changes. So there's increases in height, lean muscle mass, the onset of cyclical hormonal variation in testosterone and estrogen, and then also heightened brain development and socio-emotional processing. There's also changes in voice pitch and body odor, as well as differences across age and social and emotional maturity. So in this period, there's really a lot happening. And this picture kind of demonstrates all the things that are happening in puberty. So I just want to show you on the x-axis, it's age, so ages 9 to 18. And on the y-axis, it's height. And we don't need to really care about the exact numbers here, but this is just showing that and across age, there are changes in height. So height is increasing. And then all along the way, from roughly ages 9 to roughly 16, there's different aspects of puberty occurring. So there's a cascading set of events that are occurring that are resulting in kind of hormonal onset of adulthood, but then also um, changes in our outward appearance and ability to reproduce. And so a lot of my research is focused on a relatively late stage in puberty called menarche, so age at first menstruation, and peak height velocity, which is the fastest that one would grow while they're in their growth spurt. And these are markers of variable pubertal timing. So if we look at the population level, we can understand something about pubertal timing if we look at the age at menarche or age at peak height velocity in a population. And we know that overall, across the globe, there are downward secular trends in pubertal timing. So even though within a country there might be some variation in when girls or boys get puberty, and it's relatively harder to study in boys compared to girls, we know that overall there's downward trends. So earlier age at menarche. This picture is a little bit outdated now. It's from 2019, but it shows from where we have some data from these different countries. The lighter colors are a relatively earlier age at menarche, and the darker is a relatively later age at menarche. So we can see that there's a lot of variation. And in places where, let's say, the mean age at menarche is 16 right now, in the past it may have been somewhere around 18 or 17. And the places where it's currently 11 and a half, maybe a few years ago it was 13 and a half. So there's these downward trends in pubertal timing, and there's a lot of questions about why this is happening. A big a big reason that this is happening is that there are improvements in nutrition and economics across different contexts. And then there's also kind of an open question about other factors that could impact pubertal timing. So this would be something like environmental factors, stress, or even something like exposure to pollutants. So in Jordan, there's not a ton of research on pubertal timing, but of the research that I've looked at in some samples among Jordanian girls and among Palestinian girls who are living in the West Bank or Jordan, show that the median age at menarche is usually around 13 or 14. But again, there's kind of limited research on this and limited kind of population level estimates of age at menarche. And so at the biological level, we need to think about what could be causing varied pubertal timing. So if we start on the left side of the screen, we see that it's possible that child psychosocial stress can directly impact pubertal timing through hormones. So at the bottom is the mechanism of neuroendocrine regulation. And then at the top, the pathway would be through growth. So heightened stress in childhood may accelerate or suppress growth hormone or result in behavioral changes that promote the adding or reduction of body fat. This is where some of the research on eating disorders comes in. But those two things, both behavioral and hormonal, may impact growth rates. So, how fast or how slow someone's growing in childhood. And then that might impact the timing of puberty. So, even though puberty is the development of secondary sexual characteristics and becoming reproductively capable, we know that it's also an important growth phase in the life course. So when we think about puberty, we're not just thinking about sexual characteristics, but we're also thinking about growth. So for the remainder of the talk, I'm going to focus on this bottom mechanism. So this link between early stress and pubertal timing. And that again is the hormonal mechanism. So this is a figure that shows the dual axes that regulate our bodies. These axes are highly conserved across mammals, so they go way back in our evolutionary past, and they are conserved in order to allow us to respond to environmental stress in a flexible way. So you might have heard of the fight, flight, freeze, or faint response. So when we get stressed, we usually go towards one of those responses. Um, and this involves these two, or this involves the axis pictured on the right. So, um, so on the right is the HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. So starting in the brain, when one experiences something stressful and novel, um, there's a downward cascade that results in the release of cortisol. And then on the left side of the screen is the hypothalamic pituitary gonadal axis, which is basically the sister axis to the HPA. Again, starting in the brain and working down the body, this regulates and governs the pubertal process and anything reproductive or sexual, but also just the production of different sex hormones like testosterone and estrogen. So these two sister axes is really what we're focusing on for the rest of the talk. So if we think about the end products of these axes, the first product that we need to think about is cortisol. So cortisol, again, like I said before, is released in response to challenges that we face. And it's involved in the regulation of blood sugar, body fat, and energy use. And it's been used dynamically in the past to understand both stress and health, as well as metabolism. And there's some research that suggests that perhaps it increases in the adolescent period, and it also may be changing in response to stress and developmental changes. And then testosterone, again, is really responsible um, for the production of, or sorry, for the onset of sexual maturation. It's produced in the testes in males and in the ovaries in women. And it plays an important role beyond just reproduction in bone mass and density, as well as pubertal changes. And in the past, it was studied as only a sex-specific hormone. So it was studied almost like it was a male hormone. But we now know that it's present in all humans at appreciable levels. And so uh, there's been more research in recent decades to understand the functionality of testosterone across the sexes, and not just focusing on testosterone as a male hormone. And similar to cortisol, it's very responsive to social and ecological conditions. I should also note that both of these hormones follow a diurnal pattern. So they start higher in the morning and they gradually lower across the day and they're lowest in the evening. Okay, so now that we know a little bit about these hormones, we should think about pubertal growth curves. So if we think about what's happening in puberty, we know that hormones are probably increasing. So this is a figure from Ellison 2017, and it's just showing basically um, non-important levels of hormones. So the units of this are irrelevant. But what it's showing is that growth hormone, estradiol or estrogen, and insulin are all increasing across late childhood to about mid adolescence. And then they sort of decrease or level off. And everything but growth rate just kind of levels off. Growth rate goes down to zero because after you're done growing, after you reach your adult height, growth rate would go back to zero. So we think that maybe um, both testosterone and cortisol follow a similar pattern to these pubertal growth curves. And by understanding population level trends in hormones and their relationship to each other, we can understand something about how early life stress affects pubertal timing or development. So, the next bit is going to talk about hormonal coupling. So, this is a method that's used to understand the relationship between the HPA and HPG, or the relationship between cortisol and testosterone. So, at its most simple, it's just the association or correlation between the hormone levels or the change in hormone levels over time. Some prior research shows that there's a positive association between cortisol and testosterone across the day. This makes sense because they follow a diurnal rhythm, so they're higher in the morning, lower in the evening. But there's also some research to suggest that they also may change across pubertal status, and that that relationship between cortisol and testosterone is actually positive and increasing across pubertal status. So as puberty is becoming more advanced, so are the hormones. But there's this overarching hypothesis that we're going to call the developmental coupling hypothesis, which is that if we know that these hormones increase in puberty, and we know that there's a relationship between the hormones, then can we detect the positive associations between these hormones across age if we're not even looking at pubertal status, if we're just looking at chronological age? So positive and negative coupling refers to the direction of the association. Weak or strong refers to the magnitude. And then decoupling is this idea of coupling or associations that get weaker over time, age, or developmental status. So it's this idea, if we go back to this curve, we could imagine hormonal coupling might follow a similar trend, like this red line. It might increase, the relationship between cortisol and testosterone might increase and then start to flatten out or decrease over time. So this flattening out would be where we would think of decoupling happening. Okay. So, with the research on hormonal coupling, we found that there's really limited research outside of Western contexts. And hormone levels, as well as physiological patterning, may differ outside of Western contexts because of different social and ecological constraints on the population. In addition, the effects of socioeconomic stress and marginalization, as well as displacement or conflict experiences, may also impact individuals' physiological profiles. This is just an interesting fact. So the map that's on the background is called the orthograph map. It was, I think, developed by someone in Japan, and it's actually the world's most accurate map in terms of showing the geography relative to each other. So you'll notice um, Africa is like the appropriate size that it should be compared to, let's say, the US, whereas other maps show an outsized role by literally projecting the US and other countries as larger than other parts of the world. So this map is actually, to date, I'm pretty sure the most accurate map. So I like to demonstrate that or put that in the slides where I can. So a little bit of background for the study that we did in Jordan is that the Syrian crisis displaced over 1 million refugees into Jordan, over half of whom were under the age of 18 at the time of displacement. And of course, as you all know, Syrian refugees may live in and out of camps within the Jordanian context. And there's different forms of marginalization, whether from poverty or conflict or post-displacement living, that may affect Syrian refugees as compared to Jordanian non-refugee counterparts who are living in the same areas in northern Jordan. And so I was collaborating with Dr. Dajani and Dr. Catherine Panter-Brick, who conducted a study among Syrian refugee and Jordanian non-refugee adolescents, ages 10 to 19, in 2015 through 2017. So again, this is just an introduction of the study. And just to take a brief pause, does anyone recognize where this is taken? This photo in the background. You can just unmute or raise your hand or put it in the chat. I'm testing you guys on your geography of your own country. Any guesses?
I think, but the city center in Amman.
You're close. It's in Assault.
Okay.
So yeah, so I mean near there, right? Like a suburb. Is it like a suburb of Amman?
No, Salt is a town, is a city, a
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
city. Yeah.
Yeah, whole
You,
city. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So it's not considered like a suburb, right?
No, no, no. But it looks very
Okay.
much like some of the suburbs in Amman, by the way.
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
Downtown,
yeah.
some parts. So people would be confused, but definitely it's Jordan.
Yeah, I know. Yep. Okay. So for this study, um, there were 817 Jordanians and Syrians ages 10 to 19. This is me and Rana on the screen. This is our collaborator, Catherine Panter-Brick. And then this is a photo of the biomarker sampling that was done. So there was data collection at baseline, and then this happened before an intervention that they did where they were doing a psychosocial stress reduction intervention. There was sampling at 12 weeks and then 1 year. And broadly, they measured insecurity, distress, perceived stress, mental health, resilience, trauma, and wealth. And then for my part of the project, I reanalyzed samples from the participants for cortisol and testosterone at the University of Washington mass spectrometry lab. So this is just a photo of the mass spec lab, and this is a photo of me in the in another wet lab. So I didn't actually do the assays, but I know how to do assays in other formats or other assay methods. But we ultimately chose to go with a mass spectrometry lab. Okay, so now I'm going to describe some of the statistical methods of how we looked at this idea of hormonal coupling. And if you have any questions, you can just stop me because it's a little bit complicated. So we used Bayesian regression models, which we don't have to go into at the moment, but we used data from around 700 participants who were sampled at baseline. And the main model was looking at the following variables. So this was age group, cortisol level, or log cortisol actually, um, the interaction between age group and cortisol, and then these were all on the right hand side of the equation. So these are the predictor variables, and then on the left hand was the testosterone level. So we were predicting testosterone level based on cortisol and age and the interaction between the two. And then we added stratifications for different domains of stress and trauma. So first we were just looking at the whole sample, at males and females, at Jordanian versus Syrian, and then we looked at high and low stress, high and low insecurity, that kind of thing. And then in the Bayesian framework, we used a prior called a random walk two. And you don't really need to know what that is, but essentially what it means is that anytime we're estimating the relationship between cortisol and testosterone for a given age, we're sharing information across all ages, rather than just taking the data from 9 to 10-year-olds or 11 to 12-year-olds or 12 to 13. We're sharing information across all the age groups. So, in order to visualize what coupling might look like, we have age on the x-axis, and we have, let's say, the statistical estimates on the right. This is not real data. This is just conceptual. Um, so if testosterone is our estimate, our outcome variable, and we're looking at the relationship between cortisol and age on testosterone, then we would expect really no relationship at 8 years old, because at 8, testosterone is not really even being produced. Puberty is not really starting at that point. So we don't expect any relationship. And then we expect, as age increases in early to mid puberty, that there would be a positive and progressively kind of increasing relationship between cortisol and testosterone. So you can see that demonstrated with this upward trend, right? And then as puberty starts to conclude, we would, at the population level, assume that this means that there's this like leveling off, right? This decoupling happening, right? The relationship between these hormones doesn't become as dramatic or positive or important, really, when we're looking across age. Across the day, they're always going to be correlated. But if we're looking across age, across the population, we wouldn't expect that they're really that related at the later ages of puberty. Okay, so to get into some of our hypotheses and results, we first hypothesized that, again, that the age-specific effect of cortisol on testosterone would be positive at younger pubertal ages and then become decoupled, or basically unassociated at older post-pubertal ages. And with this, it's important to keep in mind that we're just looking at chronological age. We don't have data on pubertal status. So we're making some assumptions that the variation that's caused by pubertal status at different ages is going to be kind of evident when we're just looking at chronological age. So to kind of demonstrate this or to kind of explain this further, if we take a group of 11 and 12-year-olds, they're all going to be at different stages of puberty. So if we compare 11 and 12-year-olds to, let's say, 14 and 15-year-olds, some of the variation that we see, because there's more variability in pubertal timing happening, we can see that a little bit across age. And that's why, with those graphs of the hormone changes across puberty, the pubertal growth curves, that's why we can see the age-based trends. So we hypothesized that females, as compared to males, would have earlier decoupling just because they usually go through puberty faster than males. So if we look in both males and females, males are in pink, females are in red here, or red-brown. We can see some evidence of positive coupling for both males and females. So we see a positive trend in the relationship between cortisol and testosterone across age groups. So from roughly 11 to 19, the relationship between cortisol and testosterone is positive and increasing across age, especially for males, and a little bit less dramatically for females. But something to note here is that if we look at the individual bars, so let's take the 11 to 12.9-year-olds, those individual bars have an estimate, the dot, and then the bar, which is the error. And if we look at 11 and compare it to the 13s, the bars of both red and both pink are overlapping. So that means that even though there's this positive trend, the differences between age groups are not that robust. And so I think it's important to contextualize those findings with just some descriptives about overall levels of hormones in um, both of the participants. So Syrian females and males in general had greater overall levels of testosterone compared to Jordanians. They also had greater magnitude changes in cortisol compared to Jordanians. And they also had, they had a similar magnitude change in testosterone compared to Jordanians. So this suggests a little bit that there might be something about their early life experiences or other factors that is modulating or changing the cortisol response, the HPA response, but not the testosterone or HPG response. Um, so then after we just looked at sex differences, we looked at Syrians compared to Jordanians. So we hypothesized that Syrians, as compared to Jordanians, would have more positive coupling at earlier ages and earlier decoupling. This is consistent with the idea that maybe greater stress from displacement and other forms of stress could accelerate pubertal timing. So we would see the whole trajectory of the hormones pushed back in time if puberty is happening earlier. If it's happening later, then that whole trajectory would be moved right across age. And we found some mixed evidence for the coupling among Syrians and Jordanians. So here, Syrians are pictured in pink, Jordanians are pictured in orange, and we actually see a more positive trend of coupling for Jordanians as compared to Syrians. There's some evidence, but for the Syrians, there's not really a lot of change in those estimates across age groups. But in Jordanians, there's more of a change, more of a robust change. So after looking at differences between Syrians and Jordanians, we were looking at greater lifetime trauma and insecurity and whether that impacted puberty. And I'm just going to kind of swiftly move through these. Um, Overall, we found that Syrian females with greater lifetime trauma events had more evidence of coupling, but there again wasn't a lot of change across age. And we found similar results for insecurity and distress. And so I'm just going to kind of run through those. When we looked at mental health and resilience, we didn't find a lot of effects of those factors or household wealth on hormonal coupling. So overall, we found some evidence of positive coupling across age. We found no evidence of decoupling. We suggest that both hormonal coupling and the idea of decoupling may not be universal, but they are context specific. And different patterns regarding stress exposures may point to differences in pubertal timing or other effects on hormonal function prior to and throughout puberty. So future research could focus on this same topic, but account for body fat or metabolic rate, and also account for within individual variation in stage. So really accounting for pubertal status, not just chronological age. So now I want to quickly just touch on a few brief future research directions that I'm working on. So these pictures are from last year in Jordan, where I was sharing some of these findings in a community setting. And then I want to shift to talking about two projects I'm starting now. So the first is a project I'm called Remaking Adolescence, Social and Ecological Factors Shaping Adolescence in Jordan. So this project is going to be done with Dr. Rana, as well as with a graduate student here who is helping me Her name is Naya Rahi. She's a feminist scholar actually from Lebanon, and she's doing her PhD in sociocultural anthropology. So we're working on a survey for this project, but essentially, um, I don't know why this came out weird. Okay. So essentially, the aim of the project is to understand what factors are and have impacted ideals, expectations, and behaviors of adolescents, and whether parents and teens have corresponding views about this period and about those expectations. So we're planning to do a survey with the goal of reaching 100 adolescents and their parents. So we're ideally trying to recruit 50 rural adolescents and 50 urban adolescents. And then we want to do a couple focus group interviews with teenagers and then a focus group with parents and grandparents to understand more about the multi-generational perspectives and changes. And then another project I'm working on with Lena Hamed is the Social Safety and Wellbeing Among Adolescents Study, or SAWA. And we actually chose this because it's like the acronym in English is like SAWA, so meaning together, right? Like doing this together with the community, and trying to understand pro-sociality and how that benefits our health. So this project is really trying to understand relationships between early life adversity, things like immigration, racism, um, and then daily experiences of mood, mental, and physical health. And this is going to be, inshallah, with 150 Arab um, newcomer or second generation teenagers in the Toronto area in Canada, ages 9 to 16. And with this study, we're going to do a home interview or a home survey. And then we're following this up with what's called ecological momentary assessment, um, which is looking at daily fluctuations in mood, in stress, etc. So we're doing 3 consecutive days of morning and evening surveys that are very short. They're emailed or texted to the participant's phone. And then we have them complete that for 3 days, and they wear a heart rate monitor during that 3 day protocol. So we're trying to link the daily experiences that these teenagers are having to their heart rate variability, their heart rate data, as a marker of health and maybe even resiliency to stress. And we are optimistic that hopefully the teenagers will do this 3 day protocol multiple times, so a longitudinal design. But we also know that it's quite intensive, so we're going to see how that goes. So those are just some ideas around the two next projects. I know we don't have a lot of time for questions, but I just want to put out there that um, I'm I'm this project in Jordan, the Remaking Adolescence project. I'm currently working on the ethics for this, and we plan to start it next year. So if anyone's interested in discussing potential opportunities on the project, you can contact me. And then I just want to also acknowledge various funders and community partners. And I want to thank Rana again for like having me here and giving the talk. And I look forward to your questions.
Thank you very much, Delaney, for that very intriguing, interesting journey that you shared with us in our bodies, our physiology, what is known, what we already all know, but then what is science adding to it? And the more we understand our bodies, the better we can adjust, adapt, and adopt healthy habits, and therefore lead healthier lives. So thank you very, very much. Now, I open the floor for anybody who has any questions, or they want more any clarification on some things that weren't so clear. And if people want to ask in Arabic, that's totally fine. unmute yourself and I mean, raise your hand. But even if you can't figure out the raising hands, just unmute yourself and share with us your question. And if those who feel more comfortable typing, you can type in the chat in English and in Arabic, whatever you feel comfortable with. So let's give you a few minutes, people, to think or unmute.
مرحبا دكتورة رنا.
أهلا أهلا، تفضلي.
معلش بس تحكي لي إيش آخر فكرة حكت عنها لأني ما عرفت أفهمها مزبوط.
طيب خلينا نطلبها تحكي لنا إياها شوي بالإنجليزي وأنا بترجم رأسا. Delaney, Ruba is asking about the last idea you shared with us. قصدك ربا آخر فكرة ولا آخر مشروع بحث إلها ولا آخر إشي شرحته؟
آخر مشروع.
Your latest new research that you plan to undertake. If you could,
Yeah.
yeah, thank you.
Which
And
one? The Sawa or the remaking adolescence?
ربا بدك تبعت سوا اللي حكت عنها ولا
سوا.
سوا
هي
yeah.
سوا معناها إنه سوا إحنا هيك بالعربي يعني مع بعض.
أخذ نفس الكلمة وعاملتها اسم
Okay.
المشروع. And I'll translate, so go ahead, Delaney.
Sorry, what more do you want to know about it?
Can you re-say it because she couldn't capture it?
Recent. Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay. Yeah, so in that project, we are interested in understanding the relationship between early life experience. So things like immigration, displacement, family stress, um, experiences of racism in Canada, those kinds of things, how they're impacting health. And then, so that's the home interview that we're doing. And then we are pairing that with a 3-day kind of intensive daily survey design. So we have morning and evening surveys about the prior day or the prior night. And we're asking about, like, in that moment, how do they feel? What is their mood? What is their mental health? What was the most stressful thing that happened that day? And then we're linking that to basically their cardiovascular, their heart rate data. And then another thing I forgot to mention with that project is that we are trying to do something a little bit different with doing community-based research. So we are having uh, a youth research advisory board. So this is teenagers who are of that same age who are advising on the research, telling us about what they want done in the community, what's important to them, you know, if the questions that we ask make sense, that kind of thing. So we're recruiting for that right now. And that picture that was on the screen of those kids, that is actually like from 2 days ago when we were recruiting for the advisory board.
واضح ربا ولا بتحبي أشرح لك؟
لا واضح. Thank you
شكرا.
دكتور. Thank you.
بقى أنتي بأي شعبة عندي ولا
عندك يس.
بأي مادة؟
موضوعات خاصة special
أهلا
topics.
وسهلا، أهلين.
Thank you.
All right. في أسئلة أخرى؟ حدا عنده أسئلة أخرى، استفسارات، أي إشي؟ ما في سؤال يعني غريب عجيب ولا سؤال سخيف، اسألوا أي سؤال. So as we wait.
كمان مرة it is
آه
not a question but
آه
these factors should be studied to find out how to eliminate them. الوار النزوح البهدلة اللي بتصير في الناس هاي world need more peace قبل ما إنه نعمل الدراسات هاي كلها. Thank you so much again.
صحيح. She's saying, I don't know if you got the gist of
Yeah.
it, that
Yeah,
the
I
violence
understood.
has to
Yeah.
stop.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
And we hope as we do the research, we produce the evidence to show what is the bad impact of war. So that it's not just, I feel, just to describe the intensity of it, the magnitude of it, the complexity, the ramifications of it. يعني نحن ندرس هالدراسات مشان نثبت للعالم، وقال لك كأنها بدها إثبات، بس يعني زيادة خلينا نقول إثبات إنه قديش كل هاي الحروب، الظلم، الاستبداد، الإبادة، كلها هي أشياء بتأذي. طبعا نعرف إنه بنأذي، بس نفرجيهم إنه مش هذا إشي طبيعي ولا إشي المفروض يكون مقبول 100%. مين عنده أسئلة أخرى أو استفسارات؟ بحب أسمع من طلابي. أي سؤال أو استفسار. ممكن تسألوا مش بس عن موضوع المحاضرة، ممكن تسألوا عن ديليني نفسها كباحثة كعالمة. كيف بتطلع بالسؤال، كيف بتفكر بالسؤال البحثي، كيف بتعمل الأبحاث بشكل عام، مش شرط بشكل خاص. حدا عنده استفسارات أو بيحب يستفسر يسأل منها نصيحة؟
And if you guys don't have any questions now, that's okay too. You can always email me. Um, and you can email me in Arabic too, because I can email back in Arabic. I can take more time and everything. And you can also look at my website to see what we're doing and if you want to get in touch.
Absolutely. And I'm just going to speak a little bit in Arabic. يعني اللي حلو بريسيرش ديليني إنها بتعطينا الارتباط بين البيولوجي والأشياء اللي بتصير جوا جسمنا، الفيزيولوجية، الهرمونات، الإشارات لجهازنا المناعة، وكيف بتربطها بالبيئة اللي حوالينا، شو بإيش بنتأثر وكيف جسمنا بيستجيب، وإحنا كيف لما يستجيب جسمنا بحالة بيولوجي كيف هي بتأثر على تصرفاتنا. وبنطلع، ومن أهم الأشياء هي اللي بتركز على الهرمونات بأنواعها المختلفة. نحن بس بندرس هرمون طلع من هون راح لهون حرك الخلية، بس إلها آثار أكبر. وكيف نطلع مع الزمن ونمو الإنسان كيف تتغير الأشياء، وإلها يعني إلها trajectories، يعني إلها تطلع وبتنزل مع الحياة، من الطفولة للمراهقة، لما بعد المراهقة للشيخوخة، كيف يتغيروا. إذا نحن بنفهم هدول الترندز، هدول الباترنز، الأنماط، بتساعدنا نفهم الوضع الطبيعي، مشان إذا صار إشي مش طبيعي نقدر نصلحه مش شرط بدواء، نصلحه بتفاعلات بالبيئة، تدخلات اجتماعية، آم، اللي هي مرات من فطرتنا بنعملها، بس نحن بنثبت إنه قديش هي بتشتغل. تمام. Okay. Thank you very much, Delaney, for your time, for sharing your research. And we look forward to seeing you again at some point in another talk. But meanwhile, you've shared your email, and anybody can ask me for your email, and we will share your link to your website. And good luck. And we see you, inshallah, we'll see you in Jordan soon.
Inshallah.
Inshallah, and maybe some of our students will be volunteers to want to, or to work with research or to be included in the research team. We have time that this won't start till next year, so people can follow up and ask questions. We know you're busy and you have to run, so thank you very, very much. Take care, and maybe we'll have a talk later with Lena about the other research, inshallah, since you have to go now.
Yeah, inshallah. Yeah, that'd be
Inshallah.
good. Okay.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye bye. Assalamu alaikum. Bye.